welcome Robbie Vitrano.
All right, so we learned lesson number 1, or maybe lesson number 10, but does anyone know lesson number 10? Lesson number 10 is never follow Bill DiPaola, right? Never do that. It's a bad idea. It's not going to work for me, but I'm going to do my best. So what I want to talk to you about tonight, and this is my personal journey. I generally refer to it as falling forward. It's been an incredible experience for me on so many levels, and so many of the things that Bill touched on, resonates with me because it really has been this collective journey of good people that are willing to kind of encourage me and entertain my stupid questions. And so one thing that I've sort of landed on and I'm going to share with you today is about a perspective on where food sort of sits in the middle of just about everything, right? I think everyone in this room understands that. That's probably why you're here. But food transcends matters economic, matters that are cultural, matters that are social, matters that are political even. If you think about it, largest industry globally. And within that is an amazing power. And it particularly resonates with me as a native New Orleanian and someone that's had the opportunity to travel the world to learn about food, talk about food, and entertain that footprint. To think about what are the opportunities and maybe what I'd offer is some of the obligations that are associated with food, how it sort of sits in places that are powerful. There's a lot of levers associated with it. So I began my life, I'm more fortunate than most of you guys. I began my life doing God's work in advertising. And it's a special honor and a special perspective when you begin your life doing that very, very important seminal work. And then while I was in the middle of that, there was something that this guy was about, not that he's my hero. Does anybody know who this is? Yeah, who is it? Karl Marx. So Marx had a particular theory about advertising. He referred to it as maggots feeding on the rotting corpse of capitalism. And in seriousness, why this resonates with me is as I was working through advertising and entertaining clients and doing my work and working as hard as I was, what I realized was that I'm working for people and I'm wondering about what's really the impact. Do these people really deserve that amount of effort? Just because I'm selling something, does the world need it? Does it have an impact? Does it land in the place that it should land in terms of the potential to make the world a better place? And this really came home for me in the environment of New Orleans, in particular in the post-Katrina environment. I returned home in 1994 after being on the West Coast for a few years, and I returned home to a New Orleans that, in my opinion, was dying and had been dying really for about 40 years. Had lost about 25% of its population, an undiversified economy, had the worst school system, the most violent city, the most incarcerated city. And it was the realization of this experience. After we had built our agency to about 60 people, we had opened up an office in New York, it was like, what am I working towards? What am I really trying to do? And I had an interest in food. It was sort of a hobby interest, and I was educating myself around that. So in this experience, in this introspection, navel gazing and all the things that we sort of go through in this journey of self, what I started to say was, what can we use our talents for better? So what we did was we flipped our entire agency. We took our agency and used it as a catalyst for innovation and for change. We raised a fund. We started different companies. And it was really in that vein of saying, how can we bring together the innovation platform of entrepreneurship, the opportunities that exist in that, the ability to coalesce and bring together talent, and also bring that together with civic engagement, with problem solving. And so this is what came out of that. And that's pretty impressive, right? When you think about restaurants that you might want to eat at. This building took about 6 foot of water. It's right across from Tulane on Claiborne Avenue. It's made out of cinder. blocks. It tilts about 5 degrees to the left. But inside of this building, we came up with an idea was, let's take the world's most popular and potentially unhealthiest food in the world and use it as a platform to demonstrate, by example, how fast food might be a part of addressing the global problem of malnutrition and of obesity and lifestyle diseases. So it's a pretty high concept, right? But what was sort of compelling about it, if you look at this graph, this talks about the rates of obesity going through to 2020. And it doesn't take a genius to take a look at seeing this as a problem. And what this references is not that people are gaining weight. It's not about that. But it's about lifestyle diseases, the prevalence of a society that is essentially disconnected from its food, that's lost its association with it, lost its sort of native intelligence around it, and has been overwhelmed by factors that sort of disrupt the way people think about what they put into their body. These are lifestyle diseases like type 2 diabetes, like cancer, like so many heart disease, cardiovascular diseases. And even if you don't care about the misery, the suffering that goes along with that, you know, maybe your financial or your CPA mind takes over. So right now, one of the roiling debates in our country is, how do we pay for health care? So, you know, obviously they've figured it out at the federal level, but if you think about it, I mean, what we have is an unsustainable set of costs that people are trying to deal with and trying to figure out who pays for it. Does the employer pay for it? Does the government pay for it? Do you pay for it? And the problem is we're getting sicker, and it's more expensive to do that. And so much of that is related to what we put into our mouths. We've sort of lost contact with that. So this is what was beyond this fast food concept. Remember, I'm an advertising guy, not a restaurant guy. This little concept literally took us around the world. We created an international franchise company. We had 9 locations in Dubai. We had 3 locations in Australia, 2 locations in India, 4 locations in Nairobi, Kenya. So from that little cinder block building that took water during Katrina, we were able to build an international franchise from it. And it ended with this guy. Mark Cuban stepped in, made an investment in the company, and we sold our company to him in 2012. And it was quite an experience on so many levels. A lot of good, a lot of bad. Some of the bad came with this guy. But it really piqued my interest in issues of nutrition, malnutrition, the footprint of food and how it affects people on an everyday basis, which led me to my latest sort of folly, my latest falling forward. And it begins with this issue, that you remember that graph that talked about the prevalence of obesity. So we now live in a world where there's about an equal number of people who are chronically obese and overweight, as well as that same number of people who are malnourished, who are near or on the brink of starvation. It's about 1 billion people. And so from that condition, severe acute malnutrition is a chronic condition. It's when it's not hunger, it's when the body is essentially consuming itself. It's an extreme state of starvation. And it's particularly acute in the first 5 years of development. Most people in this room received vaccinations in their first 5 years of life. In the first 1,000 days of life is when your physiological blueprint is set. It's when your ability to resist diseases and simple sort of afflictions are basically, you're firmed up against that. And if you don't receive the proper amount of nutrition, your organs don't develop, your immune system doesn't develop, your brain doesn't develop. It's estimated in developing countries that about 60% of the children are cognitively impaired because they don't have enough food to eat. So when you think about places that seem to perennially have problems with development, so you think about Africa and the struggles that, you know, seem to happen on a regular basis in those countries, think about these issues not just in terms of those individuals, but think about the conditions that have been created. And there's a lot of reasons for those conditions, where 60% of your population is not able to fight fully with their brain, to fully engage on problem solving, on community building, on all the things that make for functional societies. That comes back to food. So there's a cure for this condition, and it's peanut butter. Now, that sounds a little trite, right? But it's peanut butter used two ways. So this is the peanut butter that goes in your cabinet. But this is the peanut butter that directly saves children's lives. So our company, Good Spread, was born out of this company. These are the geniuses that are changing the world. The hairnets are optional, but the idea of using peanut butter, this nutritional powerhouse, and vitamin fortifying it, adding a little bit of powdered milk to it, proper oils, lipids, to make it sound more important than it is, but basically it's good oils, and a lot of sugar. This is about 500 calories. And this company, this organization, Manna, makes this product, and they use it to treat and cure severe acute malnutrition. Our company was born right out of that. I was working with these guys in an accelerator in Boulder, Colorado, and the beauty of this is that it works. The problem of it is only about a third of the need is funded. It's funded by governments. So as a result of that, about 2/3 of the kids who are suffering from severe acute malnutrition are in danger of either being permanently impaired or worse, of dying, because there's not enough of it available. So the idea that we had was, let's go outside of government, let's take this on ourselves, and let's ask the market if they'll help us solve this. So we vertically integrated, right underneath that roof, a peanut butter company, because they use about 30,000 tons of peanuts every year to make their product. And so that was a good head start. If you get into the peanut butter business, you definitely need peanuts. And so they have the ability to do that. So we hacked their equipment. We started making the peanut butter first in packets, retrofitting that packet. Really ugly packets in the beginning, but it was cheap, and it allowed us to get into the game. And so for every one of these jars that we sell, we provide a treatment for a severely malnourished child. And to date, we've been able to supply about 2 million treatments, which is pretty remarkable. So this product, which is distributed around the world, we've been in 18 different countries with it, we've been able to reach kids. And the beauty of it is that it works. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks of treatments, 2 to 3 of these packets per day, and what you have is a 96% effective cure rate for children. It's quite miraculous. The formula was developed by Doctors Without Borders, and what's beautiful about this is that it improved upon the previous treatment, which was water-based, which is a problem in the developing world. It was clinic-based, which was a problem because people had to travel great distance to get to it. What this accomplished was it used the beautiful nutrition of a peanut, this product that's grown all over the world, literally, equatorially. You can find it in just about every region of the world, that kids like, that has a 2-year shelf life, and that you ultimately can provide and deliver right into a community, and you can educate people on how to use it and administer it at a community level. So this is Dominique. Dominique was in a severe state of malnutrition prior to the treatment, and that's the same child after her 6-week treatment. And the other beautiful thing about this as part of this journey is that it's allowed us to create a global network of partners. So we work with health ministries in different countries around the world. We work with various partners on different areas that are both dealing with the sort of the symptoms of this problem, which is malnutrition, as well as the root causes. World Vision is our global distribution partner on this. And what World Vision does, again, getting back to how food sort of affects things at a global level, World Vision has 4 pillars to their program. One is to diagnose and to administer this cure for the children. The other areas are dealing with agricultural education, sort of reacquainting indigenous populations with the foods that they used to grow, that used to sustain them, that had the nutritional benefits to it, as well as nutritional information, so how to feed yourself. This is it sounds sort of overly simplistic, but so many people are disassociated with the foods that make sense. And then finally, the idea of women empowerment. So much of these problems that exist at a global level is because women are subordinated in the community. They don't have access to information. They don't have the proper support for it. So both at an economic as well as an educational level. And this starts to get into maybe sort of the earnest side of this, so forgive me for that. But there's some serious issues on this that sort of need that kind of situation. If you think about the problem, so South Sudan is a country of 11 million people. 6 million are food insecure right now at this present time. It's the largest famine and humanitarian crisis since 1945 that's going on right now that probably very few people in this room know about. And there's some reasons for that. It's not because these are inherently violent or bad or stupid people. But if you go to Africa, and most of you probably know this, Africa has been subject to massive levels of colonialism over centuries of time that has disrupted systems. And if you think about industrial agriculture, and I'm not against industrial agriculture, but there's responsibilities and there's obligations associated with the way that we grow food and how it impacts people. So under the auspices of colonialism, the foods that used to be grown there that were nutritionally beneficial, grains like sorghum and millet, beans, legumes, which are highly nutritious, have been replaced by products that multinational companies can grow effectively, and they can store them for long distances or long periods of time, and they have a global market for that. So now the most prevalent product that's grown in Africa is corn. And corn is a fine product, and it's a good product, but it's nutritionally deficient. I would say nutritionally bankrupt. And so in the course of creating this global market where the lands of Africa have been now industrialized through farming, they've created a product that the local population now consumes, in fact even has a preference for because they forgot what they used to eat. Their bellies are full, but they have a problem nutritionally now, and it's contributing to the malnutrition crisis. And the people there are remarkable. I just returned from Africa. I was there 3 weeks ago, and despite the hardships, the desire for self-determination, for autonomy, for the ability to sort of reclaim their culture and their native foodways is so powerful. And the things I experienced in the refugee camps in northern Uganda amongst the South Sudanese who have been displaced and have moved over was this new generation of young people that are working across tribal conflicts, that are looking to say, how do we work together on these solutions? How can we take this awareness that we have about education and nutrition and share it with other people and make it available to them? And that's worth fighting for. That's worth fighting for. So if you care about these things and you're creating a product that has this mission to it, and we have a very clear mission. We're working to end the global crisis of malnutrition, and we're using this giant market to do that, then there's another area of impact. And this is what you're going to hear more about. If you're in food, this is something that I would challenge you to become more acquainted with, and that's your supply chain. So that is probably the place where you can get the most impact in terms of the major issues that are facing our culture today. So one of the major ingredients in peanut butter is palm oil. So a lot of you probably have heard about the problems with palm oil, about how orangutans, that's what most people know about. Orangutans are being, deforestation, orangutan habitats are being destroyed by palm oil. Palm oil is the most used oil in the world. It's in everything. And the problem with it is that the vast majority of it is done in a very problematic way. It's grown in a way, they call it conflict palm oil, where there's deforestation, there's bad labor practice, there's a lot of problems associated with it. So we wanted to make a product that the market likes. So we're not geniuses, we took our cues from Jif and Skippy, which dominate the market. And a long time ago, they used a hydrogenated oil, which isn't the best oil to use, but to make a creamy, no-stir peanut butter, which is the preference, 5-to-1 preference. And we want to reach a lot of people because we want to feed a lot of kids. So we needed palm oil, but we couldn't just use any palm oil. So I went to Ecuador, and I spent time with a company called Natural Habitats, which is doing something called Palm Done Right. And the beauty of the work that they're doing, it's only 2% of all the palm oil that's supplied, is they're doing organic, regenerative agriculturally farmed, smallholder farms, fair trade, labor practice, palm oil. So it's an amazing opportunity for us to participate in furthering an impact that is positive to its community, positive to the environment, and ultimately positive to our consumers. I love this guy. This is Matthias Altamirano. He was not paid to wear that shirt, but I like it anyhow. So Matthias is a third-generation farmer who went to school in the United States, who's now in Ecuador, in Esmeraldas. And Matthias is taking a leadership role in his community to educate other farmers about regenerative agriculture, about the benefits of organic farming. So on his land, it's about 40 hectares of land. It's his grandfather started this. He is farming palm that we use for our peanut butter, but on that land he also farms rubber plants. He has passion fruit, he has shade cacao, he has coffee that's grown on that plantation, and he is leading and educating his fellow farmers about this next generation, and it's a beautiful thing. The folks at Natural Habitats, who are our partners in making our product, again, the impacts, they're investing heavily. They've got the long view, so they need to create a larger supply than there is a demand for organic palm. Organic palm costs more, so price is always going to be an issue. If you're making a product, I talked to a few people downstairs that are getting into the marketplace. Believe me, you're always going to be worried about what are my costs? What are my cost of goods? What's my margin on that? So if you're going to take this responsibility, you better get good and educated about whether the market's interested in this, and you have to get responsible for helping them educate. But what these guys are doing is they've got their group of agronomists, they work with the growers, they're creating a better environment for the growing of the organic palm, they're paying for it, they're oversupplying it so that they're going to create the demand for it, and when that demand comes, they'll have supply in place. And if that's not enough, there's an amazing social justice component that sort of exists around food, and I challenge you to find it in any food product or expression that you're touching on. Does anybody know who this is? George Washington Carver. And what George Washington Carver was about, this was a man who was born a slave, and he had the amazing insight to recognize that the cotton industry was problematic in the South, especially in the post-Civil War era. And the problem was that cotton is highly extractive. It basically turns good soil into dust. It does not put anything back. It sucks out the nutrients. And in order to sustain that soil, you have to juice it up with chemicals. It's problematic. So he seized upon the opportunity when the boll weevil epidemic hit the South. He seized on that opportunity to say, there's another product that you should be rotating with the cotton. It's a product that puts nitrogen back into the soil. It restores the soil. And the other thing that he had, it was a cagey idea, he wanted to disrupt the hold of the sharecropper system. He wanted to create more autonomy for these former slaves to participate more fully with greater expression in the agricultural movement, to have greater opportunities and not be subject to this new plantation system that had come in the post-Civil War era. And as a marketing guy, what I really appreciated was how he went to town on this. So what he did was he marketed uses for peanuts. He marketed a booklet that talked about these different usages, different recipes, different ways of growing it. It was a remarkable transition that took place. So if you put all these things together, you start a peanut butter company. And somebody said that, an entrepreneur is somebody that's, stupid enough to start and smart enough to finish. But we're still somewhere in the stupid enough to start stage of it. But the idea is that at this stage, we're about 6 months into what we've been doing in full force. We're now in 2 anchor tenants, or 2 anchor retailers with Kroger and with Whole Foods, one on the conventional side, one on the natural side. We're in all the Google campuses through our food service supplier Compass, and then online with Amazon. If you're in the food business, I was talking to Richard about this, you've got to get your game on when it comes to online. It's the game. Everybody knows that Amazon bought Whole Foods, but the ability for you to control your brand, to control your dialogue, to control your conversation online is so much different than the sort of invisible place that you hold inside of a retail environment. So if you're going into the CPG world, want to talk about online, I can tell you about all my painful experiences thus far, but I'm getting a little less stupid every day on it. So the final piece to this is how you bring it home to your customer. And for us, to not be another bullshit practitioner of a marketing slogan, 1% of net proceeds go to XYZ charity, some arm's length relationship. Actually, I shouldn't say that's bullshit. I mean, if you do that, that's great. But the ability to bring some veracity to that was that one thing our customers said to us, and listening to your customers is important, is that I want to personalize my impact. I want to know how I connect to this. So we have the ability to track from the manufacturer of our product to the packet, to the treatment that's provided to a child. We can do that on a very discrete level. So we've given our customers the ability to send in a code, and that code directly connects them to this packet and the child that they will provide this treatment to. So we can notify them exactly the where and when those treatments are going to be provided. And it's become a terrific way to both capture that interest, reward that interest, and encourage people to be more aware of how their purchase matters, how the simple act of making a decision with my purchase actually can have this impact, in this case, literally saving the life of a child. So the other thing you do is you go out and you hustle. So asses and elbows. This 75 Winnebago, I know, it's drool envy, and you can sort of see yourself behind the wheel of that. Is the Mercedes guy still here? It's kind of like that. So our company was sort of born around a barnstorming tour. We went to college campuses, and we basically asked people, are you into this thing? Or would you like to do this? So we sent two guys that sort of Bill was talking about that were just dumb enough to jump into a Winnebago and drive around the country and to just ask people if they wanted to be a part of this. And we found that people really said, look, how do we get into this? We'll go out and advocate for RETF, for Manna products, or we'll buy peanut butter. And it's been a really powerful opportunity for us to get out and talk to people and have them experience the product. The thing that's really remarkable about this, again, back to the impact about how food sort of sits at the center of everything, literally at everything, is that peanut butter is a $3.6 billion category today. 3.6 billion with a B. And it's projected to grow to $7 billion by 2021. And there's reasons for that. It's familiar, it's nutritionally dense, it's on trend. Plant-based protein is hot, it's gluten-free. People know it and like it. Now, most of the consumption is in America and Canada, but it's moving now. The rest of the world is starting to become familiar with it. So a lot of that growth is there. And when you think about, when I see $7 billion of category, I think about hundreds of millions of people that I have the opportunity to touch, that we as a company together collectively have the opportunity to create a relationship with people and talk about why food matters, about why their purchase matters, and to ask them, do you want to be a part of this? Is this something that's worthwhile to you? And that's an exciting way to spend your day. Another opportunity within that is to talk about supply chain and why it matters. So again, if I'm going to put more expensive ingredients in my peanut butter, which we do, this is probably the only organic peanut butter on the market that's designed for the mass market. It's not designed to be holed up in a dusty shelf in a little corner natural food store. This is a product that's designed to be in Safeway, in Kroger, in Whole Foods, on Amazon, and sell to millions and millions of people. It's meant to meet those everyday expectations. Is that I also, if I'm going to sell it for $1 more, $1.50 more than Jif and Skippy or the store brand, then I better have a legitimate story around that. I better make people care about what it is that I'm asking them to care about. So if I'm sourcing organic palm oil, or if I'm sourcing fair trade cacao, I need to make it matter to them. So that's what we work hard to do. And right now, one of my crusades is conventionally grown peanuts are dirty. There's a problem with that. They're still rotated with cotton, especially in the Southeast. There's a lot of herbicides in that. There's a lot of pesticides. I wouldn't feed it to my kids, so I'm not going to feed it to my customers. So we're working with organic growers, we're working on heirloom peanuts. There's some really amazing things that are going on with this very simple, humble product, this produce that is a beautiful product to work with. So we're going to go deeper, we're not going to go wider. So I've been spending my time, I'm a New Orleanian, but I've been spending my time in this place. It's Boulder, Colorado. And Boulder is arguably one of the centers of the natural and organic food world. what they've seized upon from a lifestyle perspective are the inputs in the fastest growing segment of the food industry at large. And what you find there is an amazing stacking of R&D and investment and innovation and knowledge that allows for food companies to prosper. But what's been remarkable about that, and what's really got me thinking as a good Sicilian, is about how what they don't have is they don't have the soul and the culture of Louisiana. So in our part of the world, what you all understand, whether you're a native or a newcomer, is that food and our relationship to food, our culinary legacy is a birthright here. So whether you're a great chef like Michael Galata, or if you're a person that just loves to eat and you're a Sicilian New Orleanian and you grew up in that sort of household with that appreciation for it, you don't need an MBA to understand food. And you think about in our community, so much of the culture creators, in particular our food culture creators, really don't participate in the economic upside of it, right? And there's more efforts, places like this that are doing more to educate people and teach people about those opportunities. It's another terrific impact. So what I'm really excited about is the opportunity to help to connect the dots, to take this great food legacy of Louisiana and to create opportunities to expand the opportunity for more people to participate in it, more people that have the opportunity to see the upside of this sort of cultural birthright, this knowledge and chance to participate. Organizations like Noki in New Orleans, the Gold Ring Center for Culinary Medicine, these innovations that are coming out of here that are spreading the word. I'm excited by that. The muffalata, depends on who you talk to about where it came from. My friends over at the Central Grocery lay claim to it. But the idea that this is now known world over as a product, and a product that sells the world over, and people line up outside their place on Decatur Street for it, is pretty remarkable, and it's a great example of the sort of power and potential around our legacy. So when I think about food as culture, and I really think about how it's this amazingly powerful asset at a global level, but that really sits in this part of the world in such a profound way. And the great marketing guru Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's a powerful truism. I think Bill spoke to it in terms of what really makes Dat Dog different. Certainly they have great hot dogs and they do wonderful things with that, and it's a great experience about what you put in your mouth, but it's also all that ephemera that exists around that. It's the real joy and the hospitality that people bring to it that really makes it special. And those are the things that you put into the notion of food and how it connects people in a way that we understand perhaps better than anywhere else in the world. So I'd say, let's eat. So the idea of us doing a peanut butter company that's designed to be a business that inspires and implements solutions to the global epidemic of malnutrition is our thing. It's something that really inspired us. And what I would encourage each of you, if you're interested in food and the food business, is find your thing, and don't just chase the money. It's too hard, and I think when you do that, you miss a lot of the opportunity to really have that impact. It's difficult to bring this forward, but the way I think about it, I guess fundamentally, we're passing samples around, so I was supposed to touch my nose at some point, but please enjoy those and let me know what you think as well. But the thing I think about is that the truth of it is that the world doesn't need another peanut butter, but it really, really needs people who give a shit, who care enough to do the things that are necessary to help people. So hopefully you guys will find that thing that you really care about and have that impact. Thank you.